everybody. Welcome. Kicking off things on the internet here, just making sure we're up and running everywhere. Looks like we're good there. Looks like we're going to be good there. And looks like we are now good there as well. Streaming to multiple platforms, always a challenge. All right, looks good. And I see lots of people joining in. Miss Auburn Zebra, Miss Ardrin, FN Nichols or F Nichols, the Nina D, welcome as well. Jerry Brooks, Rod, is that Rodowin? Rochelle, welcome as well. Ahmed, Tashidi, Susan, everybody's joining in. Welcome, everybody. So today we're going to kick things off with something that people have been asking me for I almost hate to say it, people have been asking me for over a year on this particular topic. I take for granted because I use a tablet all the time. And so I don't really think that there are people that are really new and haven't used a tablet yet or don't even know why they should use a tablet. So that's what today is all dedicated for. We're going to be using various Wacom tablets. We're going to walk you through, well, we're going to use a couple. I'm going to walk you through the differences between them. There is no wrong choice. So that's the great thing about this, is that you can't go wrong with a tablet. Even if it's a different brand, I don't care if you buy one from a different company, but the point is a tablet, no matter how inexpensive or expensive, doesn't matter, is way better than the most expensive one of these. The mouse is just not great for design. So with that, I didn't forget you. And I also saw your comment about calibrating the Mobile Studio Pro, so we'll talk about that too. But anyway, so let's jump in. Let's talk about tablets. I'm going to tell you a little bit about, I have 3 that I'm going to show you, 2 that I'm actually going to work on. And as a matter of fact, let me fire up one that went to sleep here while we're talking. Let's get this one back up and going. And then I can walk you through the differences between them. I'm sorry, I should have had this one going ahead of time. Is it waking up? There it comes. Okay. And let's just go ahead and sign on. Oop. There we go. Signed in with my finger. How fancy. Okay. So let me take you through it. Let me show you the different tablets, and then we'll go from there. All right, so lots of people in the house. This must be a popular topic. I see people all the way from England. Victoria's over on Periscope today for some reason instead of Facebook, but welcome, Victoria. Marilyn Miller, Thomas Benner, great supporter of Creative Cloud, always sending out new announcements and everything. So with that said, all the announcements, I could go on and on and on doing shout outs, but let's jump over to the topic at hand. So I'm going to switch over to a view that you're used to seeing. This is whenever I'm working, whenever I'm doing these live streams, this is what you see. You see me and my screen behind me. But what you may not realize is that screen that's in front of me, the one you're seeing, is actually a Wacom tablet. It's called a Wacom Cintiq. So Wacom has three categories of tablet. The Cintiq is their like high-end, top of the line. It's a display with a tablet built in. So for example, with the Cintiq, I can use the pen. I can move the tools around, as you can see, just using the pen on the screen itself. And that is my favorite way to work. But that's not the only way, obviously. There are the traditional tablets that have been around for years and years and years, like the Intuos. This is not even the newest Intuos. This is an Intuos Pro Small. And I started out with this. Like, this is what I was mainly using, not this particular model, but mainly using just a small tablet to write on directly. And the same thing, if I use it on the tablet, you see my cursor moving around because I'm now using its pen on the tablet itself. So you're kind of like People might think, well, isn't it confusing if you're using the tablet like that's not on the screen and you're having to look up at the screen? You get used to it literally in about 5 minutes. Like that goes away the minute you start working. And then one of their newer categories is the one I had to wake up. This is the Wacom Mobile Studio Pro. The difference here is that, as you can see, there's Photoshop running on it. This is not only a tablet with a stylus, just like the rest, but it's also a Windows computer. So this, you could take this and this would be all you would need. You wouldn't need to connect this to a computer because it's got a computer in it. And it does double duty. You can use it standalone as a computer, or it's got USB-C ports, and if you don't have USB-C on your computer, there's an adapter that you plug in the middle port there, and that middle port can then be connected to a desktop machine. So you could use it on the go using Windows, or connect it to a Mac and use it like any other Cintiq, and your Mac's display would show up on here. So all kinds of ways to use Wacom tablets, from the very entry level all the way up to the Cintiq and the Mobile Studio Pros, like in the middle. I love them all. I use them all. I can't say enough about them. Their build quality. I don't get paid by Wacom. Wacom doesn't. It was never sent me a dime. Never sent me a check. Never. I'm not endorsed by them. They don't even know I'm doing the stream today. They might have saw the tweet, but that's about it. So it really doesn't matter which one you use. It's really about personal preference. Now, when I say cheap, you can get a Wacom tablet for under $100. They have the Intuos, not the Pro, because they renamed the model. So the Intuos non-Pro, I believe, and I don't quote me on this, but I believe it's like $79. $79, $89, kind of like under $100. So again, I've seen multiple button mice that are big and clunky and cost just as much, if not more. So I would say, again, I'd rather see you use the cheapest tablet than to use the most expensive mouse, because the tablet's just going to be better. All right, so enough of the description and showing the different models. Let me switch over now and show you how they actually work. So I'm going to switch over to a display where you can, this is the Cintiq, so you're seeing this. Now, I just want to point out, the Cintiq has this remote. So if I turn it on, then once it connects, I can actually do things with the remote that will let me cycle through. So I like it to be on brush size. So if you can see my brush getting, oh, no, you can't. Oh, you can. You see my brush getting smaller and bigger, and this is a wireless remote. Now you might say, well, wow, that's really cool that you can program all the buttons to do whatever you want them to do in every application, so they can be different in each application. You can make this one grab the clone stamp tool. This button will grab the spot healing brush. This one will grab the patch tool. You make them whatever you want them to be, and you program them in the software that comes with the tablet. Now, if you're not using a Cintiq, then do you have those kind of buttons and keys? And the answer is yes. Let me pull this down for the one we're going to start off with. This again is the Intuos Pro. The Intuos Pro has buttons built in and the same kind of wheel. So if I just tap the button on the wheel, I can switch it to brush size and do the same thing. Just scroll around my finger, and that is controlling brush size. So just little things like that make the workflow so much easier. Now, of course, you could always go back to the keyboard and hit the bracket keys and make the brushes bigger or not. So Adam's asking, have you given up on Apple? No, this Cintiq is connected to an iMac right there. You can't see it, but it's right there. So no, I use both. You can even see the Mac interface. I don't have to show it. See that big apple in the upper left corner? That's a Mac. All right, so I use both. I use what works best for depending on what I'm doing. All right, so with that said, so same thing, comes with its own pen and a pen holder. And of course, the other cool thing about the Intuos Pro line is that I've got it connected via USB, but this can also be wireless. So if you don't want to, be restrained by a wire, you want to sit back and kind of work in your lap, you can unplug this and connect the tablet via Bluetooth or via, some of them have Bluetooth, some of them have an RF adapter that you plug into your computer. It depends on which model and how new or old it is. All right, so with that said, what are we going to do? We're going to just come over, and now I'm going to show you the difference between working with, let me dial that down a bit, and one of these is zoom. Yeah. Let me zoom in a bit, and let me go back to brush size, and let me go ahead and make the brush smaller. Okay, so I'm going to put the pen down for a second, and I'm going to go back to the mouse. So I got the mouse in hand. And the difference is, if I were retouching this person's skin acne, well, I would have to, if I click, the mouse button is either on or off. It's either down or up. So that means that you're either applying an adjustment or you're not. And so that wasn't big enough. So I'd have to click again, or I'd have to paint with it. I'd have to keep making my, I'm going to do it with the bracket keys, keep making my brush smaller and bigger. So that's one downside right off the bat, is that with a mouse, there's no pressure sensitivity at all. It's just on, off, 100%, less percent. So then you have to get into, oh, I don't really want to paint with 100%. So I'd have to go change the brush or change the option to paint with less opacity. And then you're constantly making all these adjustments because your mouse is either on or off. With a tablet, the difference is I can go in and go to the same areas here, and I can do it lightly and do a little bit, or I can press down really hard and do a lot, because there's thousands of levels of pressure in this pen tip or in the connection to the tablet. So the newer ones, we were happy when we had 2,000 levels of pressure, 2,500 levels of pressure. The newer versions have 8192, 8,000 plus levels of pressure in the tablet. So you can make the finest adjustments, the littlest things, and have them go and have that reflected in your art without having to constantly go in and make changes to the settings. So I'm working with the Intuos tablet. I'm looking at the screen, but I'm just going where my pen goes. The other thing is that your tablet, no matter, I'm using a small, they make them in a medium, they make them in a large, they make them in an extra large, I think. You can use whatever size tablet, because the tablet, no matter what size, is mapped to the corners of your screen. So if I go all the way to the right corner, I'm in the right corner. If I go all the way down to the lower right corner, I'm in the lower right corner. If I go all the way to the left, behind me over there, I'm on the left side. So the tablet area is mapped to whatever size display you have. If you have a 80-inch display, it would map to the full 80-inch display no matter what. All right, now I'm going to tell you a little story. And this is a true story. I've had a tablet longer than I've been a tablet user. And what I mean by that is I got a tablet probably a year or two, or I don't want to say 3, but at least 1 or 2 years before I actually started using it. That tablet sat on my desk as decoration. I never used it. It sat there. I knew I needed to use it. I knew it would be better in my life, but I never, ever, ever used it. It just sat there. And then one day, I don't know why, I had no reason to, no, it was just a regular day, nothing special. I decided that, hey, for this next picture that I'm going to retouch, I'm going to make myself use the tablet. I don't know why. Again, nothing had gone wrong. I was using the mouse. And for whatever reason, that day, the light came on. Like, I was like, I will never, ever, 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 if I have a choice, retouch again without the tablet. Like, it just clicked that one day like it had never clicked before. It wasn't the first time I tried it. It was just that day, it just worked. All right, yep, Cheryl B is saying, still on my desk. And I was there. I was the same way. Mine just sat on the desk as decoration for several months, if not a year or two. And then one day I decided to try it, and I've been hooked ever since. All right, so again, small stroke, just pressing down harder, big stroke. So I'm not having to change the size of the brush. I'm not having to constantly use that wheel to do it. It just depends if I need a bigger brush. I make the brush bigger to begin with because I can always use that bigger brush smaller just by not pressing down as hard. If I need it to be bigger to cover a bigger area, then I press down harder. So that alone, the time savings I'm getting by not having to constantly change the brush size was enough to make me start using a tablet all the time. Now, if you're an artist, using a pen. Yeah, exactly. Janiscu7 says, using the pen and tablet, it feels natural because this is more comfortable in your hand than using this. I used to, when these were wired, I used to make the joke, as opposed to the soap on the rope, because you were just, anyway. Some of you will get that joke that are old enough. Some of you won't. All right. Anyway, let's move on. So, okay, we learned that pressure can control size. What else can we do? Well, you'll notice that the pen itself has a rocker button. Here, I'll kind of bring that closer to you. A rocker button right there. Or maybe it's easier to do it right here. So the button's here, the pen tip itself, and then you've got this. Well, what's this? This is actually when you switch to when you flip it over, you're actually switching to, let me dial that down a bit. You're actually switching to an eraser by default. So it's erasing with the background color in this case, which I don't want. But just flipping the pen over, you're using the pen, you're using the eraser. So if you're in an application where like you're on a layer and you want to erase, then you would erase. This, you're drawing. Okay, so let me jump over to the settings real quick because I think that's important. Let's go to my system preferences. And in my system preferences, I'm gonna bring up the ones for the tablet. Now the tablet also comes with its own app, but you can see I've got the two tablets connected here. We're working with the Intuos, so I'm gonna go to that one. The pen that I'm currently on, and this is where you go configure what you want the pen buttons to do. So right now I've got the top one. If I click that one, it would do a double click on it. And if I do this one, it would do a right click. And you can even do that per application. So any of these can be set up different for Illustrator, Photoshop, whatever applications you want to add to this area. You can also go in and set up the function buttons. You can also go and set up what touch does, or if touch is enabled, which it is. And that means that I can actually tap on the tablet like a trackpad. I can actually do things with the tablet. So for example, we head back over to Photoshop. I'm pinching and zooming on the tablet itself because I've got touch enabled. I can move my image around, maybe, if I get back in that mode. Oh, somehow I've gotten out of that mode. Hang on. There we go. I can move my image around. I can even rotate the image. Now, this is all using Photoshop functions, but Photoshop for the longest has had a rotate canvas command that just enabled by me turning it around. So very cool to be able to do these things with multi-touch right here on the tablet itself. All right, so we talked about touch. So the other one, like I said, I configured right click. So right click is bringing up that particular option here. I can, of course, tap to move away. So once you get used to just using a pen, then you can start to actually customize behaviors so that you're not dependent on the keyboard as much. So you're not dependent on going to the menus as much, because you can build all that functionality into the buttons that your hands are near. Like I usually keep one hand on, near the wheel and the buttons, and one hand actually doing the work. So that's how I would use this particular tablet. They're different. Okay, so I don't know if you're making a point or asking a question, Mohammed. He's saying they're different between PC and Mac settings. Okay, I don't know if that's a question or you're just stating that as a fact. All right, I'm curious how you will tilt and or bearing. So if I understand your question correctly, depending on the brush, you can actually use the tilt feature of the tool. So for example, let me go to the brushes here. I wasn't prepared to show that, but it's a good thing to talk about. Let me hit the letter B to go to my brush. And you've got the regular paintbrush, and of course, and I should point this out too. Let's go to the regular paintbrush. Let's dial down the size of that brush, and let's create a new layer so we're not painting on this guy's face. And then let's go to zoom and zoom down a bit, and I forgot which one I configured on this one a long time ago as the option key, but we will go, there we go. Actually, spacebar, move that over. All right, if you're referring to what I think you're referring to, well, actually, let me just talk about the brush in general first. So let's go back to the brush tool. You'll notice at the very top up here, and let me zoom in. You'll notice at the very top, there's actually a pin there, and there's one over here if you've got a tablet. These control two different things. So let me show you what those are for. Now, that's a Photoshop feature. So if I go here, this one says always apply pin pressure for opacity. This one says always apply always apply pressure for size. So opacity and size. So what does that mean? That means if I turn those on and I go get a different color, let's go get something better than that. Let's use something like that. Now, and I was about to do it on the screen. Now, if we come here and we draw ever so lightly, very lightly, you barely see it because it's a thin stroke with less opacity. If I press harder, you get a thicker stroke with more opacity. So you can turn either one of those off or on, or turn them both on. Adam wants to know, can I tell you why what? I missed, I guess, the first part of your question. Oh, let's go up here. Let's see. From you, why Apple changes their keyboards on iPhones? I don't work for Apple. I can't tell you why Apple does or does not do something, Adam. So I don't know. You'd have to ask Apple. All right. So anyway, moving on. So again, stroke control by the pressure or not. Opacity control by the pressure or not. So if I turn off size, let's turn off size for a second. There we go. Then I'm just controlling opacity at that point and the built-in pressure for the size. So it's like I'm turning that off in Photoshop and just using it in the Wacom itself. All right, let's move on. And now I'm going to switch gears, switch over to Illustrator because we're already almost out of time here. I want to talk about some nuances with Illustrator in particular. So let me switch applications. And we're also going to switch over to the Cintiq. So now we're going to use this tablet, which is a tablet and a display. And I'm going to switch to that particular pen. If I can find it, it's over there. And sometimes the pins are interchangeable, sometimes they aren't. It depends on the tablet. So what I've got here is if we just use a basic brush, the basic brush is a 15-point round brush, and we just get 15-point round. So you're really not controlling size or anything with that in this particular case. What you are doing is getting a smoother, easier stroke for drawing because you're drawing with this as opposed to a mouse. All right, let's undo, get rid of those. Next up, let's actually click on a brush. This is one of the, I believe it's one of the scatter brushes, but anyway, let's double click on it. We'll see charcoal feather brush. There we go. And you'll notice that by default, it is fixed, meaning it'll just work no matter whether you're using a pen or a mouse, it'll work the same way. But in Illustrator and Photoshop, most of the tools you can say, no, I've got a tablet, I'd rather use pressure. Now you see they're both at 100. I can say, well, vary the pressure down as low as that and vary the pressure up as high as, maybe not that much, something like that. So now when I use this brush, Same thing. I use it a little bit. I get that. I use it a lot. I get that. So I'm varying it based on how hard or soft to hard I press down. So I can get these really fine strokes that would otherwise literally be impossible with a mouse because you couldn't vary the stroke weight while you're drawing without pressure. So I don't know how else you would do it. Yes, there's a variable width tool to kind of do it after the fact, but you'd have to go to every single stroke and vary the width manually. All right. You're watching on an iPad, by the way, and in the United Kingdom. Cool. I'm glad you follow me. Times as... Okay, cool. All right. So that's one thing. So let's switch gears a little bit here. I'll switch over to this document. Let me undo what I did earlier. Oh yeah, I got another document too for you. So this particular one, I'm using one of the bristle brushes. And the bristle brushes are, again, brushes that are inside of Illustrator. Those are stroke based, so I can pick whatever stroke color I want. Earlier I was using a white. I'm going to try and get something more in the light blue family. Maybe something like that. And we'll click OK. And what I want to do is just add a little smoke coming out of this, varying it with pressure and varying it with my stroke of the pen. Just very cool things like that you would not ever be able to do with just a mouse. All right, so same thing here. Very light stroke, heavier stroke, light stroke. And you get these really, and this is all vector. This is not raster based at all because it's an Illustrator bristle brush. So just some really cool things you can do with brushes. Now, I'm going to show you the ultimate hidden gem inside of Illustrator if you have a tablet with touch capabilities. All right, so let's switch to my next document. Illustrator for years now has had an additional type tool that takes advantage of touch. So these were all, of course, typed with a regular type tool, and the letters were spun around and so forth and so on. But there's area type, type on a path, vertical area type on a path, vertical. But then there's also touch type. What's touch type do? Well, first and foremost, on my tablet, in the upper right-hand corner of this Cintiq is a touch button. So if I tap it, it turns touch on. That way I don't have to have it on and pick it up my palm if I'm not trying to do touch. Now that I've turned that on, when I come over here and click, even though that's all one word, I can now go and mess with individual letters via touch. And it might feel gimmicky to you, but if you're trying to play around and just get things looking a certain way, you can do that with the touch type tool. We can pick the, hang on, touch that one. Let's get that one again. There we go. I can make that one skinnier. I can make that one taller. I can really design just using my touch capabilities with this particular one. So I can move that one around. And even though this is all one word called tropical, I'm able to play with it. And that's why the letters moved in, the other adjacent letters moved in, because it is all one word. So if I go to this one, try not to get the 8. They're overlapping. All right, let's see here. Since the 8 wants to play, let's move it out of the way for a minute. If I get to that O, there we go. On the O, same thing. I want the O to be bigger, smaller, skinnier, move it, do whatever I want, and vary the weights with touch via my tablet. Just another cool thing you can do if you have a tablet. Now, Cintiqs have usually been out of the price range of most people because they're not cheap. They've just been out of the price range of most people. So I'm going to turn you on to one of their newest ones. And again, let's see if I can paste this in here into the chat. Yep, that worked. Great. This is their new 16-inch tablet. So it's about the same size as the as the Mobile Studio Pro that I showed you earlier. This is like a 16-inch, I believe, Mobile Studio Pro. And the difference is the 16-inch Cintiq is not a computer. So it's designed to connect to your computer just like this 27-inch Cintiq is doing. So this 27-inch is connected to an iMac over here on the right-hand side. This is its own computer, but can connect to a Mac or PC. The 16-inch Cintiq, the big difference is instead of it costing thousands of dollars like the traditional Cintiqs, it's $600. It's like $650, something in that neighborhood. I've never, ever, ever seen a Cintiq that low priced. So if you ever wanted to step up, again, $79 on up, you'd be happy. But if you did ever want a Cintiq, that would be the one I'd buy today. Because the price is right, the screen size is decent. It's not 24, 22, 27 inches, but it's 16, and it is a Cintiq that will connect to a Mac or PC. All right, I think I answered stuff along the way. Let me go ahead and grab some of these questions I see here. I loves asking, can you select tools with the pen? Yes, you can. Oh, with the pen. Yeah, you can actually. There is a... let's see if I can show it real quick. There is I don't know what key I have it configured for. That's touch. Maybe it's this one. There is, here, let me go find it. There is a control that brings up an on-screen like little dial that you can use the pen to switch between tools. I don't use that often, which is why I don't know what key I've got it set for. But there is a way to do it. It's called the on-screen controls. Yep, this is it. It's the express menu. So the express menu is you can configure it to one of the buttons. And when you bring up the express menu, then you can go in and assign what all the keys will do, what tools they will use. And actually the radio menu will do it as well. So yes, you can configure the pen to bring up a little menu, a little circle that you can then program what tools you can switch between. That way you wouldn't even have to program the buttons. You could just use the pen. So yes, you can do that. All right. Do I know how to change the nips? Yes, I do. So believe it or not, these little nips do wear down. So they will eventually, I don't wear them down as much as other people, so I guess I'm not as heavy-handed as some. But what you get is you get this little holder, but this little holder has a magic feature. And the little holder, if you turn it and open it, oh, look, more nips. More nips there. And on the side of this thing, or actually in the middle of it, this little metal thing, you can actually use it to extract or pull out the nip out of your pen so you can replace it with a new one. And again, these came with it, so I haven't used any of these yet because I'm not that heavy-handed. But anyway, if your nip is wearing down or not giving you the fidelity you want, just go ahead and swap it out. And that comes with it, so that's all built in. So that's hidden in your holder. And again, the extractor is a little metal thing you take and you pinch and you pull the nip out, put a new one in. All right, let's see, any other questions that I missed? Does the side of my hand laying on it affect it? Usually not if I'm using the pen, but if the pen wasn't making contact, then yes, the side of my hand could. That's why it's easy to toggle touch on and off. That way, I don't need touch right now, toggle it off. That way my hand can affect it. But with the two nips are plenty. Cute. Anyway, let's see here. Let's see if I missed anything else. All right. Nibs. Yes, nibs would be the correct term. All right, let's see if I missed any over here on this platform. Wacom just announced a refurbished sale. Go ahead over there and check it out. I agree. Nibs. Nibs are better. It's a better way to say it. Yes, that Carissa McGee, yes, that was the spot healing brush. All right. Cool, cool, cool. I think I got all of those. And I got, wait, one more. Last question. Well, the good question. So luxury card stores, question. How does the pen know which one to use if both control for pressure and size are turned on? It doesn't. It uses both. So in other words, if I apply light pressure, I'm getting a thinner stroke and less opacity. That's why you usually don't have them both turned on at the same time. One or the other. Pick which one that's more applicable to what you need it to do. So good question. It doesn't know. Can you use it with other software like Capture One? You can use it with anything. You can use it with Microsoft Word if there was a reason to use it with Microsoft Word. There's no limit. This is an input device. It doesn't care what the application is. So yes, you can absolutely use it with DxO or Capture One or anything else. Anything that would work with a pen. All right. Know what your favorite Apple thing you use is. Adam. I don't know why you want to know what my favorite Apple thing is that I use and why, but I would probably guess it's my iPhone because that's the thing I'm using and holding most of the day. All right, there you go. All right, so with that said, cheers everybody. Thanks for watching, and we will catch you on the next one. I hope you got something out of this. Long time coming. Sorry I didn't get to it sooner, but Wacom tablets rock. I couldn't do my work without one. So with that said, bye, everybody.